Hello, welcome to another video where we talk about Lorcana and what deck we've been playing in the recent meta. And right now we've been playing Amber Steel, which is one that I think right at the start of the set I had very high hopes for being the deck I wanted to play. And that is not the list on the screen. 1 second, there you go, there's the list on the screen. We had very high hopes for it being the deck I wanted to play for the set, and then it kind of looked like Blurple was going to be the dominant deck. And then Sky and Kurt managed to basically take the deck to a very good heights where it kind of really put some faith into me, put some faith into like it being playable and being viable. In the sea of Amethyst, it is kind of maybe a bit sad that the only two other options that look kind of viable outside of Amethyst is an aggro deck or a full control deck like green blue. But for me personally, I quite like playing aggro, and if you're really not enjoying set 9 that much, these games are very quick, so you can probably still win a store champs with them. But we managed to pilot it to I think we got to 4th on the simulator that we just don't talk about. And over that, I think playing this deck and a few other little decks, we were operating at about 61-62% win rate. And then the last push, we got like 40 wins with this list, and I managed to cut down the data and look, and I think we're operating about 70% win rate, with it being fairly even on the play, on the draw. I think it was a little bit more weighted on the play, but it was not still that bad on the draw, so overall it seemed pretty good. And yeah, all I really did was I started with Sky's list. Sky is just a lovely friend. I took his list and I looked at what Kurt was playing as well, and Kurt's a lovely guy who was just happy to have a chat, and I kind of just worked at meeting them in the middle. I think in the end what we've ended up with here is it's only one card different from what Kurt was playing, and the only card we actually changed in the end was he has 2 Captain Hooks and we have 2 Fire the Cannons in there instead. But overall the list seemed really, really smooth. I think the thing that's changed that like most people just haven't been seeing in these Amber Steel decks has been the Troubadour. So that's just a really awesome inclusion. I didn't realize how much I would like that card and how much it would really bring it back for me. But being able to sing that Strength for the Rage of Fire earlier, having a 1/4 resist is great, because in this meta right now, 1/4s are just so, they rule king really. Daisy's amazing, Palace Guard is amazing. So now saying we have a 1/3 and it has resist, so it's basically a 1/4, but it's even more obnoxious, and also it sings for 4, so it can sing your strength, or it can sing this when all my life begin. It's just a really powerful card, and it's surprising that on top of that we just sort of evened out the numbers for a bit. For a while I wasn't playing with the Sven. I didn't really like the Sven. I didn't really understand it, but Kurt worded it to me as sometimes it can be a better top deck than the Dot can, which it really can be. Being able to basically quest a Vanilla, restand it, and present 5 lore readied up can just put some decks into a really tough spot, especially if they've already ran out of their Elses and their strengths and their answers for these sort of upright cards. So that's been really good. But I can walk through this. Let's say this is really Sky and Kurt's creation, and I've just been piloting it a bit. That I've been really enjoying it. I can't say if this would be a deck that I would bring to, say, the big events that are coming out, the CCQs or the DLC. I can't say I'm there with it yet. I'm still feeling a little bit more confident on some of the Amethyst decks, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people in the meta are. But, quick games, get to fire them off. I started trying to sleeve, and I'm going to try and max rarity the deck as well, because I thought that would be a really fun thing to do with an aggro deck. But yeah, it's felt very consistent. I just will talk about the matchup spread quickly, and then I'll go through the deck. So I think the thing to note is it has a very good game into Blurple. On the play, it's pretty much guaranteed lock, you win. You have to basically have a very poor hand, and your opponent has to have a very good hand. I'm not saying this over the X amount of games that I played, I still managed to lose on the play into Blurple sometimes. I missed getting a very good 3 drop down. I didn't be able to sing strength. I couldn't, get my Tiana lock. I couldn't find my daisies. It still does happen. And they got triple Elsa into double Hades, into the unknown. These things do happen. It's not locked in 100%, but you have a very, very good game on the play. You can even win with some of the weaker hands, if you're just spamming out Nala's, Lady Nala, and you just win on aggression. Maybe they do have the answers, they have the Elsa Bell and all those things, but you're just winning on pure questing aggression. That can happen as well, so that's great. On the draw, you still have tons of options there. If you can get the same game plan you maybe do on the play, you get your Daisy, Nala, and then you get your Tiana and you Pete, so they can't enter the unknown net, and you sing strength from your Tiana and you full quest out for 5 lore, presenting yourself that you're going to gain another 5, 6, 7, 8 lore on the next turn, and then maybe you dock or maybe you Pluto, and you just keep making the board state incredibly awkward for them. It's very winnable on the draw. And again, I think for the Blurple player, it requires them finding a lot of things. They need to be able to find, their ramp on 2 that has to be secured in their mulligan. On top of that, some 1-drops might help, especially if they're on the draw. They need some 1-drops, and then they need that 4-drop. They need the Elsa, they need Hades, they need all of those cards as well. So yeah, it seems a very good matchup into Blurple. Into Purple Steel, it can feel quite rough sometimes. I still think it's fairly even, I'd like to say. For me personally, when I've played it, I have not found the Purple Steel matchup to be the worst thing in the world. You can still win quite heavily on the skill difference. Like, I think if you just bet back yourself and fancy yourself as a player who is operating the deck at a higher skill level, then maybe you can win it on that. I mean that like the least arrogant way. I don't know why I use that terminology, but if you sort of back yourself, I think if you know when to quest, when not to, the tempo plays and all those things, you can do that. And then but still, if you're against someone who's on Purple Steel and they have the right tools, it should be a bit rougher to do. It's still as well, even though we're the Amber deck and they're the Amethyst deck, if we're both playing these dock strength piles, if they're going to go 1, 2, 3 sing strength, they're probably just going to beat you. You have to be able to do 1, 2, 3 sing strength. The benefit we have is we do have the Troubadour to sing that strength earlier on, especially on the draw, or even on the play as well, if you just want to do a really aggressive line and just run out of the gates with it. So you've got those options as well. Purple still doesn't feel too bad. The mirrors just feel up in the air toxic. Sometimes who just gets the most lore on the board, sometimes who gets the strengths out. It's just, that's what it is. They've always found a bit horrendous. Trying to commit to a Rhino shift line now that Fire the Cannons is being quite commonly played is a bit mad. So it can just be play draw. It can just be who finds the strength for the Raging Fire. It can, it's basically on the play you're favored. If you're on the play and you have strength, you've probably won the game. If you're on the play and you don't have strength and your opponent on the draw has strength, you've got a bit of a game there and you can play it out. So that's kind of the set in general, isn't it? Let's be honest. If you're a Blurple player and a Blurple mirror and they have Elsa, Hades, whatever, they're probably going to win that one and you're probably not going to win it. So that's just kind of how the set has been. Do you have it? That's set 9 in a nutshell. So the Purple Steel and the Blurple matchup, Blurple, you've got a very good matchup there. Purple Steel is fairly good as well. So you can just take those things into account. Blurple seems to be dominating a lot more than Purple Steel, at least in meta shares. Purple Steel is still winning a lot of stuff, but Blurple is like taking large majorities of the meta share, and that's just quite important to take into account because that's what you're going to see in Swiss, and you want to be able to win those matchups to convert. The other thing as well, so I mentioned Purple Steel, Blurple, Mirror is just the mirror, as any card game's mirror. If you're going on the play and you do your thing more effectively than your opponent, you're probably going to win. The other matchup is Green Blue. I've felt Green Blue is winnable on the play if you're able to aggressively quest out, get Pete's out there. You don't have to worry too much about Tiana. I'm going to say that very loosely because they will be playing Scrooges and they might be playing the Shift Baymax, but it's just about aggressively questing out for the lore and then playing the Pete's down to stop the Under the Sea and just trying to win off that. On the draw, you really just have to hope they're going to brick and just not get anything on the board, and you're going to be able to take advantage of that. But that does bring on to another good point with the deck. So yeah, that's just the Green Blue matchup. On the play, I think you can aggressively quest out and maybe win it. Just get over the finish line before they can start getting John Silver and Hades and Under the Sea. On the draw, it just feels you're a little bit too behind. They get to do that ramp very early. They get to ramp before you even got lore on the board, because they can ramp on 2 and you'll play your Daisy on 1 and, and you pass it back. And it's just, it just never feels great. So you're kind of hoping they miss the ramp, they miss the 1-drops, and you just quest out for a ton of lore very early on. And I'd like to say, that is the thing though with the deck. I think it's really good to bring home in it. It has a fairly simple mulligan. You really just want to go hard for the best hand you can possibly get. The most optimal hand into pretty much an open field into a blind match is Daisy, Nala, Tiana, Sing Strength into either Pete or Pluto. Both seem to sort of do the job, and then continue playing Dock and playing cards out. Pretty much every game you just want to do that. There is like matchup dependent. There's sometimes it can get a bit more interesting with the mirror. Maybe you do want to try go for the Rhino shift. That's your best option. Maybe into Purple Steel, Rhino can be a bit rough as well. Into Churner Dogs or Crummer Dogs or whatever it's called now, you maybe want to do the Rhino shift. But in the nutshell, you really just want to do 1, 2, 3, and that 3 preferably is pretty much always going to be Tiana. Sing Strength for the Raging Fire, and then just quest out. And I only said that the deck is simple in that matter of, I think it lends itself to that. That's not a bad thing. That's like just the nature of the deck. That's the nature of an aggressive deck in a card game. They tend to have just a simple game plan they want to try and execute as effectively and as well as they can. We're shoring that up with things like Mulan in the deck, just heavily mulligan. Like Lorcana basically lends to having a very aggressive mulligan system. And you really just want to achieve that every game, and that's like your game plan. Of course, you play a deck like Blurp or like Green Blue. They'll have multiple lines, multiple ways to approach a matchup, multiple things to be thinking about. Even in their mulligan, is it's this, I need this card. If it's that, I need this card. We technically can go blind into every matchup, look for 1, 2, 3 Sing Strength and a Tiana. Tiana preferably, but I think Lady can also work as well in a lot of the instances. And I think it lends itself to that. That's not a bad thing. That's a pretty good thing sometimes, especially in an event where you don't really know what you're playing against. Prior to maybe set 9, we had to really think about how many songs would keep in our hand, how many songs we'd look at. 2-cost Ursula is very rare to see anymore, so we can kind of keep these cards in our hand pretty effectively. And we basically now, into a blind field, have a very good mulligan, and we know what we're doing every game, and we get to just basically execute it. So that is pretty good. That's a good thing that you can do with the deck. And it also means that you have this such simple game plan. You have a very straightforward mulligan, and you just go for it every game. And if your opponent stumbles, if they fall, then you just take full advantage of that, and it doesn't matter the matchup. And that's why the interesting point I want to say about Green Blue, I've been able to 2-0 Green Blue just by the deck fumbling. 2-0 Purple Steel, 2-0 Blurple, all those matchups I can easily find the 2-0 win in there, just purely because they're having to mulligan for such complex things, Clarabelle Shift Under the Sea, ramp. The same with Blurple. They have to find the ramp, the 4-drop, the 5-drop. They have to look for all those things, and all I'm going to do is just aggressively quest out. I have such high lore density in the earlier parts of the deck with Daisy, Penny, and all those cards. And Nala as well. It's like the best example. I am pretty dense on getting so much early lore with this deck that I can just take advantage for anyone who stumbles for even a moment, even someone who maybe doesn't understand the matchup as well. Maybe they don't know that Tiana's about to Sing Strength for them, or that Fire the Cannons is going to pop their Iago. All of those things, they're just not thinking about them. So you can take full advantage of them. And I think that's pretty good. I think the issue of before as well is I just really didn't understand that the deck could do the length. I felt that, Amber Steel getting its perfect combo was a lot harder than Blurple getting its perfect combo. Turns out it's probably not, because the amount of cards that we're looking for is just not is like way less than what Blurple is looking for. Of course, we want to go 1, 2, 3 Sing Strength from Tiana, but to be honest with you, sometimes you can do it without the Tiana. No, without the Strength, you sometimes can do it without the Tiana, and you do it with the Nala. If you're missing Daisy, you probably just find something else that quests and you put it on the board as well. So it ends up being that you could probably have a day where you have to really back yourself. You have to really think that you're, I've got it in me to take the whole day. Get some lucky on some dice rolls, because some matchups you probably do need to win some dice rolls. Play your lines out, see how you do, and you might do well. And I guess there's Sky and Kurt, and even the gentleman who won it with his Aurora build, it is doable. It seems it's very doable. So it's very nice to see all the data was in there. Like I say, I'd sort of given up on the deck as being competitively viable, and now it looks like it's gone on to do very well. So that's just good news for me, because I like playing the deck. But yeah, all of these points sort of I make pretty valid. I think are pretty valid. I hope pretty valid. But yeah, the deck has a very simple game plan. You want to be able to execute it every game. You can sometimes even know if you've won or lost by the mulligan, which can feel a bit rough for some people. But I think in the reality, I'd rather have that knowledge going into the game rather than find later on that I'm going to lose the Blurple Mirror because they've got Genie and Elsa and I didn't find a card that has the word evasion written on it. I'd prefer to have my games quicker. But on top of that, there is some skill expression as well, I guess. There is some knowing when to use Sven, knowing when to turn the thing sideways, preferably basically turn things sideways when Tiana's locked, or you basically can protect your characters from when they turn sideways and keep them alive. But beyond that, it's not particularly too much depth. It's just trying to perfect that mulligan and trying to make sure you can craft these perfect hands. Mulan has been very helpful for the deck as well, because if you're going for heavy mulligans and you find a Mulan, you can start changing it up a bit. Like, you're not going to lose a game just because you've got double dock in hand or something. You can play the Mulan, draw a card, discard a dock, and keep going from there and keep finding some gas going forward. So there's all those things as well. And yeah, it can just produce some really crazy like locks for your opponent with Tiana into Pluto into Pete, meaning they can't even use actions to interact with any of it. Singing Strength of the Raging Fire is great as well. So I guess we'll go card by card here. As I've talked about the matchups, talk about why I sort of back the deck as a good one. All of the good things about the deck, but we'll just go into each card and why we think it's kind of good. So of course you've still got the Daisy in there. If anyone can hear this thunder that's just happening right now where I live, that's mad. But I'm going to still keep doing the video. Of course, we've got Daisy in there, like still just really powerful. It was interesting to see that Dave only had 2 Daisies, but I think because his uninkable count was still at like 20, that kind of makes sense that he maybe cut down on some of those cards. And he was looking for Aurora turn 1 a lot more than he was looking for Daisy turn 1. But Daisy in there, like again, just the aggressive, powerful quester. Interesting stuff of like, if you just open the game with double Daisy or triple Daisy, you're probably just going to win that game, and it doesn't really matter the matchup. Maybe green blue could get out of that situation, but if not, it's just so powerful. And the Rhino combo here of the Rhino 1-drop and the 4-drop. The 4-drop as well has been kind of questioned how good it is. I did for a while test without it as well, just to see how powerful it is. It gets you the points in the mirror it gets you sort of good points in mirror in Churner Dogs, sometimes in Purple Steel can be pretty good, and sometimes later on into, say, Blurple, when they haven't really got much besides an Elsa Exert, you can probably get some use out of it. But overall, the 4-drop has not felt that great. The 1-drop's been pretty useful, being able to lower the strength for, say, a 4/4 Bell so it couldn't attack into your Daisy, or maybe even you don't have an answer for Jaeger, anything that has 4 strength and you can minus it by 1, so when they attack in, you actually still get it alive. It's surprising to me how much I've been preferring the 1-drop Rhino over the 4-drop Rhino, and even so much still that I'm inking around keeping the Rhino, because I've got in my head that I'm going to game plan of Daisy, Nala, -1 to the Captain Hook on their board so I can quest again and just get more lore. Doing things like that is just noticing how powerful it can be. The 1-drop, that -1 just for 1 turn can be enough for you. The Mulan's great as well. Like I say, you just go for these heavy mulligans, and even if not, you're going that 1 card deeper. And I'd say there's a little tip, and I'm pretty sure in the comments, if you want to tell me that I'm wrong, please do. If you're in top deck mode or you have no cards in hand and you draw a Mulan, it is better to play the Mulan, draw a card, and discard the card you draw. It gives you more deck knowledge, and it might be the dock, but it might just get you a card closer to the dock. Of course, you never know that, and you never know the odds of it. You could kind of predict them, that maybe, I haven't seen any docks yet, and I've drawn 10 cards, my odds is XYZ, or I've drawn 2 docks. Maybe I need to start siphoning the deck a bit, but always draw it, discard it. It gives you a bit more deck knowledge, and yeah, you might get closer to a dock. You might screw yourself over, but I always do that because it seems like the correct thing to do. But searching for the deck early on, going like, right, in this matchup I just generally need to find Strength of the Raging Fire, I lose. So you might have to play it on the off curve, so you might have to play it on turn 2, but if you play it on turn 2, you can always pair it up with any of the other 1-cost stuff. You've got 12 1-drops and 2 Fire the Cannon, so I'm pretty sure you're going to find a way to make use of that ink, even if you're playing the Mulan on 2. Or maybe you play it on 3 once you've got the Troubadour set up. It's just trying that draw 1, discard 1, getting you that 1 closer to strength or to dock, and thinning the deck out. It just feels overpowered in that sense. Like, it's very, very good. Overpowered is a strong term. It's not overpowered. It's just a pretty good card. And into Penny, like Penny being able to give resist 1 as well, kind of pairs with that Rhino idea that I mentioned, where you can put something just 1 out of range, which means it gets to quest again. And if that's a Nala or a Daisy, sometimes that can just be backbreaking for your opponent, knowing that they didn't deal with it this turn, and next turn they're going to have to deal with it again. And sometimes as well, they might go, right, I'll put 2 damage on it now, so next turn I can finish it off. You play the Penny, you heal it, and you get resist. So it's just a pretty good card. And yeah, the Troubadour, I've already mentioned all those things about it. I think it will shine best for you on the draw. Getting to sing that strength early against Purple Steel and even Blurple, it's just pretty good. And on top of that, once it's turned sideways, a thing like a Calhoun, if they have a Calhoun and a Palace Guard, they can't take it out, because it will only end up doing 2 damage to it, and that's just big. It will require them finding some extra damage. They may play Jafar or Lilo, but just overall, it just feels very strong. Dock is in there Doc, great. Let's just not talk more about Doc. He's your card draw. I'll admit I've gone way less from keeping Doc in the Mulligan. I tend to just go really heavy on looking for that perfect curve of 1, 2, 3 sync strength. 1, 2, 3 Tiana sync strength. So I just don't have space sometimes to keep a Doc. If the hand's looking Mono-Buento and it looks perfect, I don't know what Mono-Buento means, I might keep a Doc. If I'm not sending back like 4 cards, if I'm sending back like 1 or 2, I might keep the Doc going, yeah, I just need to find some Inkaballs or whatever, or this hand's pretty much fine. I might keep it, but heavy mulligan finding 2 Docs can sometimes be rough. It's not as bad with a Mulan, like I say, but just I've been tending to not keep as Doc in hand as much as I did before. Nala has just been, it's a card that I'm very excited to say that I was like kind of wrong about. I kind of dislike the card. I think maybe I was just too high on Piglet, but 1 resist is pretty huge, especially in a format where a lot of people are playing like weenie type characters that have 1 strength, and they may have 2 characters on board that can deal 1/1, but not enough to take it out. Before Piglet was removed by Elsa, was removed by a Genie, whatever, even those things as well. But now those things don't even remove it. They bring it down to a 2-quester, but they don't remove it. You can penny heal it up and just keep going with the race. So, Nala is pretty good in that instance. Yeah, it's surprising like how the only thing I do miss is it doesn't bite back at all. It doesn't do any damage back to your opponent's character. Sometimes they'll run something like there used to be Piglet and you'd get like a Smee hit it. I know Smee's not around. I know he's not around, but like maybe like a Mulan or something like that, or like a 2/1. You'd run it into the Piglet and it would be removed in the snapback, and you kind of were like, well, I got 3 lore and I took a character off the board. That doesn't feel bad. But yeah, 0/3 basically is just pretty nuts, and that 3 being very awkward with the resist. Into Lady there, which is just pretty much going to be a staple on Amber until it gets rotated out. Just being able to go 2 wide is great. Having some powerful 2-questers like Nala is awesome, and yeah, just a pretty great card in general. Tiana, when Tiana works, is amazing. It's kind of upsetting, not upsetting, but in this format, a lot of people are just very heavy on the answers. They have the instant unknowns, they have the strengths. It feels like that's why I have to play Pete sometimes, just to protect it for that 1 turn. Getting a turn of Daisy, Nala, Tiana, full questing, and playing a Pete is pretty big. Because it means they can't interact with it, and as long as they've done the maths showing that they don't have enough strength on their boards to take it out, by even paying the Tiana tax, I feel in a very good spot. So yeah, those things as well. And then Pete is just pretty great for also Under the Sea, Strength, Into the Unknown, all those amazing things. Just a great card. I never really took it out on my list. I know a lot of people took it out and now they're adding it back in, but for me, I just never took it out. Already talked about Rhino. Sven is, like I said, I didn't like him at the start. Added him in. He can be that thing that readies your Nala and lets it quest again, or a thing can ready your whatever 2 questers, so it gets the quest again, and you've got 2 things stood up right, ready to go for some more lore. Brilliant card. And I really undervalued it. I didn't think it was that good, but yeah, I've just been proven wrong that it's just a very strong card in the deck. Pluto looks pretty good as well. I think he can sometimes be a rough top deck. He might be one that I don't want to play as many of, especially as I'm going for Tiana Pete a few more times in the game. And to be honest with you, a lot of people are working their way around Pluto, and he's very expensive at 4 ink to basically not see. You don't see the results of Pluto until you pass turn and see how they respond to it. You see the results of Sven as it restands it, and you kind of ask them to use more resources to remove readied characters. But with Pluto, it always feels a bit like, he might just get answered on this turn. What if they Into the Unknown my Tiana and then they can take out the Pluto, and then it just felt really rough because they've used a Rafiki to kill it, or Rafiki Basil to remove it. I was like, oh, that's such an expensive turn. So yeah, maybe I don't linchpin and put that much importance on the card. Still, you get to steal some games away from people where you do get that Tiana into Pluto and you do get the lot going and they don't have the answer for it. So it's a great card there. Into Fire the Cannons, which I think a lot of people just basically hadn't realized, because Let the Storm, Cindy singing Let the Storm's not in the game anymore. And before, that was a massive punish for playing cards like Royal Guard or even Palace Guard, the 1/4 that with a illusion, just playing any cards like that. It was a massive punish to play a card like that if you got Cindy singing at the Storm and it took it out. So people were like, oh, it's not in the format anymore, we won't want to play it. But that means that Fire the Cannons is not as good as Let the Storm Cindy singing it. Definitely not as good, but it means people are playing those cards, and then you can punish them for playing those cards with Fire the Cannons. So definitely, I probably want to include more Fire the Cannons. That was, after my testing, that was one of the cards I really wanted to up the count on. I thought it was quite useful. Strength of the Raging Fire, staple and steel, we all know that one. And When Will My Life Begin? I've always really enjoyed John Silver as a card. I saw Kurt was playing this card, and the moment that actually did it for me was when I popped a giant cobra, drew a card. I had Troubadour out, I singed it on a giant cobra, popped it and drew a card, and I was like, oh wait, I actually really like this card. On top of that, you can do things like just stop a bell from attacking for a turn, a 4/4 character, stop a giant Tinkerbell that happens quite a lot. Into the Sapphire Steel deck, stop that for a turn and just get another turn of questing. And if you have a thing like a Pete or a Troubadour or even a Pluto that can sing it a one quester, it's really, really useful. So it's been pretty useful to draw one. I will admit it's not like make or break in the deck. It just has its very niche moments where it's pretty, really good. I could probably even see it going, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm going to try not playing it and see how that feels. But it's had its niche moments where it's just been very, very useful, especially against cards like Scrooge McDuck as well, the 4-cost uninkable. Making that not attack for a turn is really big. And to be honest with you, if I took it out, it might even just be John Silver gets to go in because I just like that card. And then setting up more singers for strength would be pretty awesome. Yeah, so that's sort of all of my approaches on the list. It's how it sort of felt pretty good for me. I've enjoyed it. I think it has a fairly good matchup spread. I don't know if I back it for a big event just yet. I've just generally been having fun with the deck, so having fun in set 9 felt like a very hard thing to achieve. So I thought I'd do a video on it as it's where most of my time has been going. So thank you very much. I can do matchup guides. I can go into depth on the mulligans. But yet again, I still think the mulligans and the matchup guides are fairly simple in what you're trying to achieve. You're just trying to achieve that aggressive game plan, singing strength, delete something, locking them out of the game with Tiana, playing Pete to protect your Tiana, Pete and Pluto. You're pretty much doing the same thing most games. There are some niche moments in the mirror. There's some niche moments in Ruby and Amethyst Steel. Green Blue as well is a good one as well. There's some very different, unique things you want to do. But in general, most of your games you can win by just getting that strength singed and having a board full of questers. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to that rabble.